Assalamualaikum and good day to Dr. Haida and Ms. Fatin. My name is Nayli Batrisyia and today I will be presenting my final year project on politeness strategies used in the movie Shortcomings 2023. Firstly, I will give a little bit of introduction about the study, then we'll look at the research objectives and questions. Next, we have our literature review section, followed by the methodology of the study, and of course, the findings and discussion. Lastly, we will wrap up this presentation with implications and recommendations for the study. So why politeness? Because by Mansour in 2018, politeness plays a crucial role in our communication. It helps us convey our messages while also considering the feelings of others. According to Leach, a politeness theorist, there are two ways to approach politeness: linguistically through language and socio-culturally through context and culture. My research focuses on the linguistic aspect, how language reflects politeness in communication, but in the context of films. Politeness in films works much like in real life. It can be shaped by characters' relationship and age and genre. In this study particularly, I chose the film Shortcomings. The protagonist Ben is a really interesting person. He's not your usual main character. I will also examine the politeness strategies of other characters like his girlfriend Miko, his friend Alice, and his colleagues Autumn and Sasha. Then moving on to the problem statement, politeness is not just about using the right words, it's about knowing your context. What's polite in one culture or situation might be seen as rude or inappropriate to other culture. So not everyone is able to distinguish what's polite and what's not. This often leads to misunderstanding where people unintentionally offend others. And in this case, Ben is often critical and dismissive towards himself, towards others, towards everyone in his community. His existence in the film actually highlights a common struggle many people face and when navigating social interactions. Why is this study significant? First, it sheds light on how cultural context shapes social interactions. The film Shortcomings presents an important portrayal of Asian American, a minority group in the US. Second, analyzing the politeness strategies in the movie can reveal how social expectations and cultural influences affect behavior. This is valuable for sociologists and politeness researchers. The third significance is understanding character development. Ben's interactions offer insight into character growth and relationships, which can help filmmakers and behaviorists create more complex character. Lastly, the study contributes to pragmatics. This research will be valuable to language learners, and anyone interested in improving their politeness. Next, we have our research objectives and questions. Firstly, to identify the politeness strategies used in the movie. Then, secondly, to determine the types of politeness strategies. And lastly, to investigate the reason for this usage. And the research questions are the same as you can see in the slide. Then, onto the literature review session. We will start with the framework used. Jeffrey Leach created a refined version of his All Politeness Maxims in 2005 called Grand Strategy of Politeness (GSP) that has 10 maxims altogether. Leach said to be polite there will be constraints, major and minor. Major constraints are post-politeness, which works like positive politeness. Minors are not neg politeness, which is the negative part. Post-politeness covers the odd numbers maxim. The first, third, fifth. Neg politeness covers the even number. The second maxim, fourth, sixth. So these constraints are also supported with the phase concept. Maxims under post-politeness serve positive phase goal. Maxims under neg politeness serve negative phase goal. In my opinion, GSP is more structured and also pretty universal, which is why I choose it as the framework of the study. Next, we will look at some of the previous studies. There are a lot of studies using politeness strategies by Brown and Levinson particularly, but when it comes to applying GSP in the context of mass media, especially films with intercultural setting, the research is still limited. One study by Aleph Akbari 2020 examined how GSP is used in political discourse or at the interviews and comedy shows. Their research revealed that maxims like tact, modesty, and opinion reticence are commonly used in speaker-oriented units across this media. Turkey's study in 2018 compared politeness strategies between Iraqis and Americans. It found that Iraqis tend to make more direct requests, and this study helps us understand how cultural factors like power and unity shape politeness. Another notable study by Hamza and Nordin 2023 analyzed an interview with Donald Trump, revealing how he violated all of Leach's maxims. This deviation from politeness was strategically used to manipulate public opinion and also reveal another function of GSP. This finding is crucial for my research on shortcomings because Ben's likely similar to Donald Trump. So lastly, studies on plays and films like those by Omar or Sarwin have shown how different characters use planning strategies based on how close they are with the person. And these studies provide a useful framework for analyzing Ben's character and his relationship towards his friends and families. Onto to the methodological aspects of the study. For this study, I use a qualitative research method which is ideal to understand complex or subjective data. I adopted a descriptive approach which is suitable to describe all these situations happen around the characters. So the movie chosen is Shortcomings based on graphic novel. I selected this using purposive sampling. The primary instrument was content analysis guide supported by Leach's GSP. My data collection process began with selecting films that fit intercultural setting and was released in 2023 or 2025. Then I watch it multiple times and cross-checking it with the script, and I looked back at the scenes to determine whether they demonstrated Leach's GSP. And for data analysis, I use GSP, and I ensure accuracy by discussing with my supervisor, and these results were then presented descriptively. And to ensure reliability and validity, I implemented audit trails throughout the research process. I kept detailed records of decisions made during this analysis. Then, onto the important part of the study, which is the findings. I only selected 4 scenes because of time constraints, sorry. 2 scenes from each post politeness maxims and neck politeness maxims that I talked about earlier. I will also justify the reasons for each scene using Leach's face concept of politeness. Let's start with the first maxim in the list, generosity maxim. This one is all about prioritizing what the other person wants over your own. It typically shows up in speech as like offers or invitations, things that express a commitment to helping. Now, in this scene, Ben is staying with Meredith and Alice in New York. When Ben sees the small apartment, he's a bit hesitant because there's no guest room. Meredith, noticing this, quickly offers the couch as an option, apologizing that she doesn't have a proper bedroom for him. This might not seem like the most generous offer, but it still shows that she cares. But there's more going on here. Meredith is not only being generous, but she also has a positive face goal. She has to maintain her face as the host and Alice's girlfriend. So, despite the size of her apartment, she insists that Ben stay and offer him the couch, saying the more the merrier. This shows how she is trying to save face and still be hospitable. Ben, of course, tries to be polite and suggests that he could stay at a hotel, not wanting to impose, but Meredith rejects and emphasizing that she wants him to stay. This again highlights how she desired to maintain her positive image as a good host. Let's now look at the sympathy maxim, the seventh maxim in the list. This one is showing empathy and caring about the other person's feelings. This maxim is often expressed through acts like congratulating or commiserating with someone. Essentially, it's about recognizing someone's emotional state, whether it's celebrating their success or offering comfort. In this scene, we see Ben and Miko having one last conversation before Miko heads off to New York. Ben realizes that he hasn't properly congratulated her, so he takes a moment to tell her that he's happy she's excited about the internship. What he said in bold in the dialogue box, is a clear example of him practicing the sympathy maxim. He acknowledges her feelings, shows he understands her assignment, and doesn't brush off her enthusiasm. From the concept phase perspective, Ben is still trying to maintain his positive face with Miko, especially since they are about to take a break. By congratulating her, he's reinforcing his image as a supportive boyfriend, despite their relationship is a little bit troubling. It's his way of validating her happiness and showing that despite everything he cares about her future. And then next, we will look at night politeness. We have the modesty maxim, which is the fourth in the list. It's about self-devaluation. In simple terms, this maxim involves downplaying one's own qualities or achievements to appear humble or modest. A typical example of this is when someone deflects a compliment or downplays their abilities. Leach mentions that rather than accepting a compliment directly, people practicing modesty might say something that diminishes the value of the compliment to themselves. And in this scene, Alice is telling Ben that Meredith is working on a novel, but Meredith quickly downplays that by saying the bolded one in the dialogues. She's trying to make her situation sound less impressive by saying writing a novel is something she says to cover up the fact that her main job is teaching. Alice then corrects her by pointing out that Meredith is actually a professor at Barnett College, New York, which is a pretty prestigious position. This is where the modesty maxim is in use. She's downplaying her success as a professor and trying to make her writing project sound like more of a side thing. She's being modest and trying not to come across as bragging about her professional accomplishment. In terms of face, Meredith's actions also is related to a negative face goal. When she says she prefers to say she's a writer, she's actually putting teaching in a lower position, implying that being a writer is more prestigious than being a professor. This is a way for her to maintain face and avoid feeling inferior, but admitting that teaching is her primary job. Finally, let's discuss the feeling reticence maxim, the 10th and last maxim in the list. This maxim involves downplaying or suppressing one's own emotions, especially when the speaker doesn't want to burden others with their feelings. For instance, when asked, "How are you?" people often suppress any negative feelings and may simply say, "I'm fine," even if they're not. It's about holding back and maintaining a certain emotional distance in social situations. In this scene, Ben answers Alice's call after Miko leaves for New York. Alice, being a good friend, asks him how he's feeling, and she's likely aware that he's feeling bad because Miko left him. Ben initially says he's fine, but then in a typical Ben fashion, he admits he's not exactly fine, but insists that he can manage. This is Ben practicing the film reticence maxim. He doesn't want to burden Alice with his sadness of Miko's departure, so he suppresses his feelings. From a face perspective, Ben is showing a negative face goal by not openly expressing his true emotions. He's trying to not losing his face by not breaking down even in front of his close friend and maintain his emotional strength, which is consistent with his characteristics. Even with Alice, Ben struggles to show vulnerability. So, what are the implications of this study? First, in terms of cross-cultural communication, politeness is not universal. As we saw in the movie, it is heavily influenced by cultural norms. For example, Ben's interactions often reflect Eastern ideals of modesty, where it's common to downplay one's feelings. Meanwhile, Meredith's behavior showcases Western hospitality, where offering help is considered polite and welcoming. These cultural differences don't just appear in shortcomings, they are present in real life communication too. So, from a pedagogic perspective, this research can be used to teach politeness theory in the context of language learning and in communication. It provides a concrete example of how politeness strategies work in real life conversation. This could be useful for language learners who need to understand how to navigate this balance between different cultural setting. So finally, the research highlights the behavioral insights. politeness strategies can provide. Through Ben's interaction, we see how people manage their social connections while maintaining personal boundaries. By using subtle strategies like sympathy and self feeling reticence, Ben is able to maintain relationships with the overwhelming others with his emotions. So this is particularly important to understand interpersonal communication in broader social contexts. Looking ahead after having finished writing the paper, I have a few recommendations for future research that could further develop our understanding of politeness strategies. First, a comparison of frameworks could be beneficial. By combining Leach's GSP with Brown and Levinson's phase theory, we could explore how the theories might interpret politeness differently. For instance, Ben's behavior can be analyzed through the positive and negative phase by Brown and Levinson. So, secondly, we could try different types of media. The insights gained from Shortcomings can be expanded to other genres of films like romance or science fiction, to see if these are any different. For example, Shortcomings highlight politeness in cultural intimate setting, but an action film might show different result. So the third is quantitative methodology could strengthen the findings by incorporating both qualitative and quantitative methods. Researchers could look at the result differently, like frequency of certain politeness maxim, and this would allow for a more statistical analysis of politeness, showing which maxims are the most used or the least used and in what context. Finally, cultural comparisons would be valuable for understanding the universality of politeness strategies. Comparing politeness in films from different countries or culture could highlight the differences and the universal patterns. For example, comparing Ben's politeness to a character, let's say from Middle East, could reveal how they are different to each other. So in conclusion, this study has shown how politeness strategies play a crucial role in Shortcomings, all because all 10 maxims were practiced throughout the movie. Albeit the amount for each past politeness and neck politeness are not the same, but the characters certainly use a balanced amount of both. So the research not only contributes to politeness theories but also has broader implications for media studies, language learning, and cross-cultural communication. Future research will continue to build on these findings, helping us better understand how politeness functions in a society and how we can apply these insights to improve communication in diverse contexts. That is all from me. Thank you.